Good morning, and welcome to the last day, the fifth day of the industry conference presented by Christie Digital at the 50th Toronto International Film Festival presented by Rogers. I'm Jane Kim, producer of industry programming at TIFF, and it's my pleasure to introduce Dialogues, Creative Visions in Animated Feature Films. What a banner year for animated films. Today's guest speakers reflect the range and vibrancy of animation. This conversation brings together creators from different countries to reflect on imagination, diversity, and creative vision fueling animation's global moment. If you haven't already, I hope you get to see the films of today's guests, as well as the many other shorts and features at the festival. A special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Rogers, our major sponsors, RBC and Visa, our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada, for making our programming possible. The Dialogues program is supported by Ontario Creates and our media partner, Variety. To open today's program, I'm delighted to welcome Marcel Jean, Artistic Director of Annecy Festival, to say a few words of introduction. Please join me in welcoming Marcel.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. To set the table for this industry panel, I would like to say a few words about the evolution of the feature animation landscape in the last decades. We all know that feature animation was, in the western part of the world, for a long time, essentially Disney's business. It's also true that every 2 or 3 years, there was an audacious filmmaker who proposed something different. Paul Grimaud or René Laloux in France, Ralph Bakshi in the US, Jiří Trnka in Czechoslovakia, etc. The Annecy International Animation Film Festival was founded in 1960. It was then the first event devoted to animation films. And it was basically a short film festival. Since then, the animation industry has evolved, and the festival followed the evolution. In 1985, the MIFA, the animation market, was created. The same year, we gave an award to a feature animation film for the first time. Until 2007, there were between 4 to 6 feature films in official competition every year. It was not a lot of films. Let's be totally honest and say it was not enough for a serious competition. But it reflected what was the state of the industry at the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. From 2007 to 2018, there were 8 to 12 films in competition every year, which is better. And every year, there was more feature films selected out of competition. As an example, there were 18 features selected out of competition in 2017, and this number went up to 23 a year later. Every year, we receive more films than the previous year. And every year, the average level of quality seems to be better. Facing the situation, the spectacular growth of the production, we created a second competition section for features in 2019, the Contre-champ section. Since then, we have every year 10 to 12 films in each of these sections. If we add the features that were selected in the different non-competitive sections, it's 46 features that were screened in Annecy this year. I'm talking about numbers to give you an idea of what's actually happening in the world of animation production. Recently, we had in competition features from Pakistan, from Mexico, from Dominican Republic, from Latvia, from the Philippines. These countries are new players in the animation world, And there were 4 Canadian features in Annecy this year, a record. You will have the privilege today to hear 4 important creators who will talk about their creative experience. And I'm proud to say that Domee Shi, Momoko Seto, Kid Koala, and Mamoru Hosoda are also good friends of Annecy. So please welcome them and the moderator, Teresa Scandifio. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. Thank you for everything you do to advocate for animation as an art form and an industry, and welcome everyone here today. Such an honor to have these 4 incredible filmmakers here to celebrate as part of TIFF's 50th anniversary. There is a lot that we can talk about today, so we're gonna dive right in. And I'm gonna start, they changed the place. I'm gonna start with Mamoru. You have made so many incredible films, a master of anime, known for so many film references and unique film style. You? Very humble.
Hi.
Can you speak to some of your influences in art and film when you started off as a filmmaker, and how it shows up in your films today?
そうですね。アニメーションって子供のために作るもので、そのことの尊さっていうのがすごくあると思うんですけども、一方でアニメーションは映画でもあるというふうに思う時に、まあ僕はやっぱり自分の体験とか、自分の記憶とかそういうものをもとに映画をアニメーションを発想することの方が多いです。でそういうところから普遍的な表現につながっていけたらいいなって思って作ってます。
So when we usually think about animation, we think, we often make it for kids. But for me, I think animation is a form of cinema and art in terms of expressing life experiences and all the things that we feel on a daily basis. So I really think it's a form of art, and that's what I hold near and dear to my heart when I make my films.
We'll dive deeper into that in a bit when we speak about the collaboration for your latest film, Scarlet. So Domee, there are people in this audience who are trying to navigate personal vision and commercial appeal. Can you speak to when you started at Pixar 11 years ago?
14
years ago, 2011, 14 years ago. What was your breakout project or projects, and how did you navigate balancing personal vision as maybe seen as a strength or a risk?
Yeah, I think that's the eternal struggle with artists, is balancing your vision with kind of connecting with audiences, and the fact that your piece of work needs to make money in some way. For me, I mean, I feel really lucky in that when I first started at Pixar, the first project I worked on was Inside Out, the very first Inside Out, and getting to watch Pete Docter and Ronnie Del Carmen direct the movie just with kind of with their gut, with their heart. Like they're like the most chaotic, in a great way, the most chaotic filmmakers sometimes, and they are sometimes just throwing spaghetti against the wall, but they are like leading and guiding themselves with their gut, with their emotion, with their feeling. And I really took that and really tried to think about that when I started developing my short film Bow. And just like, I just tried to really circle in on a feeling, a really strong feeling or emotion that I was feeling at the time. And at the time, I was feeling kind of this weird sense of guilt and independence over leaving the nest and like moving away from my parents and my mom. And that was the first time in my life that I've lived so far away from them. Like, they're still in Scarborough to this day. But yeah, and I moved to California, and I was like feeling all these feelings, and I just had to get it out on paper. I started drawing, and this like image of this old woman like coddling a little dumpling boy to death kind of emerged from my pencil. And I think that's the key. It's like finding that really strong emotion or memory or feeling that you felt like at some point in your life, and kind of trying to use that as a North Star to navigate your way through a story. And you can use like, you know, abstraction, visual metaphors as a way to kind of like express that emotion and feeling. But I think like if you know what that is early on, that will really help you. Because if it made you feel something, chances are it, you know, like that feeling was also felt by other people in the audience, and that's the best way to kind of like make sure that your story connects with a lot of people. So, yeah.
Thank you. Momoko, you, speaking of strong emotional pull and connection, your films and your body of work is this impressive mix of scientific documentary, experimental animation, or experimental film and animation, and you somehow are able to create this through line through it all. When you first started out, did you have any creative influences or any artists or, you know, anything that you had access to that influenced you to think about this kind of mix?
Yes, I come from art school, so fine art. So I have this culture of painting, performance, sculpture, video art, experimental art, and so all those things are kind of my background, let's say. I'm very interested in what is new, what we have never seen in this world, and I think the difference when you are in art school compared to this film school is in film school they ask you what is the story, who is the casting, and in art school they ask you why do you do that? What is new? What do you want to put in this world? More something that's worth to exist. And so I'm very every time I try to write something, I say, okay, why I take you 1 hour of your life to show something that we don't want to see the same thing, you know, over time. So this is kind of important debut, the point, starting point. Say, okay, and so in my film, I propose you to be a dandelion seed. So I think in the whole cinema history, we never been a dandelion seeds for 1 hour and a half, and so I was like, okay, this is a kind of, you know, challenge, at least something new, and so yeah, it's starting from that, and I'm very inspired by, of course, very classical films from Godard. I was a huge fan of Godard, how he's liberal, free to invent a new language, and also inspired by literature, and so it's not only animation, I would say, and very diverse like this. Paintings, a lot of painting, and yeah. So it's all the combination. That's why in my film I have shooting, photograph, sculpture, painting, animation, 3D animation, but all the things are all mixed together to create a kind of new world.
I love that, the new language. It's a stunning film. Congratulations. Speaking of traversing languages and different spaces, you know, Eric San, Kid Koala, known as this globally recognized DJ, you're a composer, you're a theater producer, you've done live production, and then you did a graphic novel, Space Cadet. What motivated you or influenced you to make a feature animation?
Okay, if I go back to the beginning, one of my fondest memories as a child growing up was watching Charlie Chaplin films with my grandmother. And she would visit us from Hong Kong, and she wouldn't understand any of the movies if there was dialogue. So the only things we could watch together were Charlie Chaplin films. And she was kind of a shy woman, but I never heard her like guffaw. Except when, you know, it cracked the whole room up. My parents, my sister were like, "There's Grandma." She's like, "Oh, yo," you know. Yeah. And even at six years old, I said, this energy here. I didn't know anything about film production or anything. It was the first time I was being exposed to Charlie Chaplin. And I said, this energy that's in the room, this connectedness, I want to do something in the future that stirs that up. So that's what happened. Let's fast forward a few decades. My grandmother passes away, very dear to my heart. And I found myself a bit lost. And at the same time, I was also expecting my first daughter to arrive. And so my brain was just going in two different directions, in the future and the past. And I just tried to, you know, kind of go through that process of coping with the loss of grandma and, you know, the nervousness of being a new dad. And that culminated in Space Cadet, the graphic novel. And that was me just trying to get through that time, you know. And then when that book was released, I did a show, and, you know, I had some music. It came with a CD. I performed some of the music, and serendipity would have it that Jeanette Petit, who's the producer of the film, came to that show, witnessed the music and the story, and literally, I think 2 weeks later, we got a call, you know, from her company, Outsiders Films, and she said, "Hey, I want to option your book to turn it into an animated film." And I said, "Okay, cool, yeah, let's do this." But, you know, for me, that was the seed of it. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeanette, but I think that was 14 years ago I signed the option over. So she's been tirelessly like trying to find funding and get it all together. And then we finally went into production 3 years ago. And then here we are, premiering, North America premiere. Wow. Yeah, here at TIFF.
Wow, that's incredible. And there's so many through lines that we could talk about, that emotional impulse and need to get it out on paper with the two of you talking about it, and then also the non-dialogue and the punctuation with scores and sound, and I definitely noticed the Charlie Chaplin noisy kind of component in your Space Cadet. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Mamoru, you are known as someone who experiments with animation style and with storytelling and with great critical acclaim and global distribution. In your latest, much anticipated film, Scarlet, you focus on some signature themes, right? Conflict, otherworldly, modern, different time periods, adaptation. Could you speak to how you and your collaborators chose to approach the story and visual style?
そうだな、一ついつも考えてるのはアニメーションで表現されたことっていうのか、なんだろうな、映画ってたくさん作り方があって、いろんな人間のいろんなものを今まで表現してきたと思うんですけど、アニメーションという技法を使って、人間のいろんな側面を描くってことがまだ歴史的に少ないと思うんですよ。で実写映画っていうのはものすごいたくさんの数があって、それぞれの監督 歴史の中の監督たちがすごくさまざまな名作をものにしてきたと思うんですけど、アニメーションはやっぱり作る本数が少ないもんですから、まだこのアニメーションという技法を使って、どうやってこう、その人生を描いていくかとか、いろんなこの人物を描いていくかっていうふうなことの、試されてる機会がすごいまだ少ないと思うんですよね。で、少ないってことはイコールまだできることがあるってことです。まだ表現されてない映画があるってことです。で、それは一体何なのか。アニメーションと技法を使ってもっと新しい映画、今までにない映画、試されたことのない、表現っていうのがまだまだたくさんあるんじゃないかっていうふうに思ってやってるんですけども、一人の人間がやることはすごい少ないですから、まだ、十分にはできてないんですけども。
So, regarding animation and expression and storytelling, there are so many ways to express human emotion, and animation being one of them. But I think it's really rare to have an animation story which focuses on history or timepieces, if I may. So I think when I thought of this, I thought, well, this could be actually a great opportunity, because if it still doesn't exist, then there are so many ways to explore it and bring it out into the world. So with this particular project, I wanted to use animation to open more creative outlets to express time and timepieces.
It is a beautiful visual, the visual styles, the different references. It is an epic achievement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Momoko, there are people in this audience that have experience doing live action, documentary. There are some people who have experience doing animation and some doing experimental. Dandelion Odyssey is this stunning mix of scientific curiosity, technical innovation, and artistic depth. Can you give a little bit of insight of what the production looks like when you're blending time-lapse, micro live action, animation?
Thank you. I think a lot of people haven't seen the film yet, so it's a combining of animation with the characters as 3D animation, but all the plate, all the set is real shooting of plants and different natural elements. So I use time lapse to capture the growing plants or dying moss or whatever in the time that I shrink. So you see it very fast. So it's like you have like a huge fungi next to you growing up very fast, and it creates like a very strange universe. I also use, I put also a lot of animals in macro. So there was a scene, there is a scene with big tadpole flying and coming, try to eat the character because it's an action movie. Of course. So I use a macro and slow motion camera, and we develop also lenses because I want it so close that we had to invite some tools. We also have a huge shooting. Went to Iceland for all the frozen world because the character, when they're alive in a new planet, it's all frozen. And so before, in my experimental short film, I made a small iceberg in my studio with moulage and this kind of thing. But here I said, okay, I want a real one. So we went to Iceland with drone, filming a lot of huge iceberg, glacier, all those real thing that I combine after compositing with my little sets. So it's kind of huge mixture of big scale with small scale but look like big scale, small thing but look like a big gigantic dinosaur. So it's all mixed like this. And so the shooting was 260 days recounted with my DOP for 2 years. A lot of location in Japan. Also, we went 2 months shooting inside the mountain with our time-lapse machine that I brought from France, because I'm based in France. So we have all the equipment there. 300 kilograms of materials, and taking boats and going to the Iceland, shooting in the forest. And in France, we have 9 months shooting in the countryside. We've made a huge studio machine with 17 still cameras tuning for 9 months, shooting a lot of different time lapse and real shooting next to it. So we were living there. I brought my kids, and they went to the school next year, and shooting all the special effects. And so in Iceland, of course, 1 month. So it was very long, 400 terabytes of data, and double copy, it's 800 terabytes, not gigabytes, terabytes. So we were like a huge data, and we work a lot with experimental way. So it's not an experimental film that we try things to look like something else. So we have a lot of tests that we can have it, during the shooting. So it's kind of chance, because normally when you have a shooting, you have all the list, and you have just to do it. And I wanted to have also this space that we can also explore some things. So we work with engineers who develop also the arm robots. So we have a lot of techniques. And what is inspiring from scientific film, you told me, for instance, Jean Painlevé or Jean Commandant, French experimental scientific films in the early 90s, 90s, yes. No, 20th century, sorry. They are not afraid of inventing new tools. And because, as I told you before, what is new images that we want to provide you? So new tool is also the key to have the new images. So I have this desire to invent a new tool. So we really collaborate with the engineer, and that was very, great to me. It was a great experience for that.
It is amazing to hear all the technical specificity, because when you all see this Dandelion Odyssey film, you will be gasping and have emotional attachment to these dandelion seeds. There will be large-scale slugs and tadpoles and the time lapse of massive fungal mountains and glaciers, and the fact that you were able to balance all of the technical and still have an incredibly emotionally drawing and motivating story is huge. So I'm glad that our audience got to hear a little bit about the production behind the scenes for when they are watching this achievement.
If I can just add one thing, it's not just a matter of technical challenge, because behind that I have this desire to say, okay, it's not just a set design neither. There are also actors of the film. Yes. So, of course, my lead actors are 3D animation, Dandelion seeds, but behind all those living that we think that they're not moving or they're silent, they're actually moving like an actor. And this is very important to say, okay, all the forest, they are not just a set, they are also actors. And in an ecological point of view too, we are not stepping on the ground because they are also an actor. So it's all this response that I wanted to have using technical help, but it's to show that it's all living, it's all an actor.
So you have a producer in the audience of your live show with Space Cadet, and they say, let's make an animated feature, and you say, great. How do you approach who you pick as your collaborators and the team that you put together to make Space Cadet the feature film?
Jeanette had, the producer, Jeanette Petit, it was her idea to bring in Mylène Cholet to do a screen adaptation of the original graphic novel. And she sent me version 1 of the draft, and I read it, and on the last page, I was just in full tears. Then I showed it to my wife, Corinne. she was in full tears, like, well, we have to make this movie, you know. So I followed Jeanette's lead a lot of it, but I also brought in as head of story and production designer my friend Lillian Chan, who's Toronto-based, actually.
Yeah.
She's here, I think.
Is Lillian here?
Yeah, there she is.
Yay. Congratulations, Lillian.
She can draw anything more kawaii than me. Any night, she didn't even have to have her like eyes open. And we'd be like, okay, we're in 10 seconds, draw a cat, and we'll do it, and then hers will be cuter. And I'm like, okay, we're going with yours, you know. So over time, you know, Lillian brought in a crew, you know, storyboard artists, friends of ours, John Ng, who I'd worked with on an animated video game before, and Howard Shia, and some of the kids from Seneca also helped us with boards. It was an organic build, and yeah, I just feel very lucky to have met and worked with such amazing artists over time. We work with a studio called Singing Frog, a service animation studio in Montreal, and again, small team, 16 animators, I think, but just really passionate, nuanced artists, yeah.
And the panelists before you have been talking, or the filmmakers have been talking about the different collaborators, like bringing in engineers or bringing in story collaborators or folks they have. You have a depth of music collaborators, and you were talking about Charlie Chaplin and the idea of the sound-image correlation. How did you find that experience with the animation?
Oh, well, I knew the music was going to be an important part of the film since there was no dialogue, and since the topic, you know, deals with a bit of cycles of generations and loss and stuff. I was looking for some voices of comfort, and so I had a short list of singers that, you know, whose songs over the years have really comforted me. So, you know, Karen O, Martha Wainwright, Megan Smith, Trixie Whitley, Emiliana Torini from Iceland, I'm missing somebody. Oh, Diggable Planets, Mariana, Ladybug Mecca from Diggable. And stakes were high, you know. It was, I say it's akin to having this dream list, and then it was like I was in middle school, you know, at a new school, and, you know, they're all sitting at different tables, and I have my tray, you know, at lunch, and I'm like, hi, Karen. I sit 3 rows behind you in algebra. You want to maybe sing on soundtrack for this movie I'm making? And yeah, there was a lot of awkward, you know, texts, and, you know, I'd tell them information about the film or the scene, and then you'd get that, like, 3 dots reply, and then we'd just do that for about a minute, and then ghost. You know, and then I'm talking to my wife, I'm like, what does it mean? And then later it's like, oh, sorry, I was driving my kid to soccer or something. You know, they're all busy people. But luckily, I mean, just I feel very blessed that they all agreed to do it. And, you know, I sent a version of the film in progress, and I remember, you know, Karen writing me back and said, oh, you know, she shed tears watching it, and she'd be happy to, like, take a swing at making something for the film. So that seemed to be the case with all the singers that you hear on the soundtrack. So I don't know. It's something. I'm popular with the moms.
But that's the soundbite. So I think it's important for people to know, especially ones that are starting off, that even if you have all of this experience, you still get nervous, or you being vulnerable, asking people to collaborate with you. It's those 3 dots, like, that's a universal feeling, right? Waiting for that response. Yeah. Speaking of collaboration and team building, Domee, you have had incredibly unique experiences in your productions. Your first feature film, Turning Red, you built your team, and then it moves to remote, and you're doing it on Zoom, and you're doing it online while everyone's navigating how to learn production online. You're doing this with your first feature, and then with your latest film, Elio, you're taking on the vision and the production 4 years in. You know, with these varied experiences, is there a common thread about how you approach leading teams?
Yeah. Yeah, like when I joined Elio, it was difficult at first because it was my first time kind of taking over a project that was kind of spearheaded by another creative, Adrian Molina. But I think with Elio, with Turning Red, with Bao, I think the first thing I try to do is just find my way into the main character, into how they're thinking and feeling, and I just I just try to find that access point. Like how do I get on board with what they want, and how do I fall in love with what the main character wants? Because that's the key to getting like audiences to fall in love with the characters' journey. And I just remember, I think just like, again, just like tapping into emotions or feelings or memories that have left a really strong imprint on me in my life. And, I thought back to when I was in middle school and high school, and I was the vice president of the anime club. And at the time, anime was very niche. And I just remember it was like me and my best friend and like maybe a handful of other kids in school being like really, really passionate about this one thing, and just dreaming and praying for the day that I could go to a place where I felt like I belonged, and like that desire and that drive to find my people, like that's kind of what we found. Me and Maddie Sharafian, the other co-director of Elio, that's what we found when we came on board the project, and that's what we kind of infused into the main character, because he had not wanted to go into space before, but when we joined the project, we like looked at his character, we like felt kind of our own, memories and emotions of being that weird kid in our hometowns. That was the key for us, and that kind of like unlocked a lot of the story for us. Was like, what if this weird boy always wanted to be abducted by aliens? What if he wanted to find his people, but his people were out in space? Yeah.
So you lead your team by getting them all to see this universal kind of, this personal universal pull.
Yeah, and I think like once we started talking about this drive for our main character, like people started getting on board with it. Like everyone has that memory. Everyone has that emotion of like wanting to find their people, and that was the key to kind of unlocking the film for us, and to bring everybody on board with our new vision.
I love picturing you in the anime club. Nice, cool.
It was very sad.
We would have been friends.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in this room would have been part of the club with you.
Yes.
Mamoru, in a recent article in Variety, interview, you mentioned that film festivals and streaming and online platforms are providing an opportunity for a different kind of literacy in audiences. They're getting access to global animation in a different way than maybe 10 years ago. Can you speak to that idea of the new viewing habits of audiences producing a different kind of creative expression opportunity for filmmakers?
ね、どんな風に変わってきてるんでしょうね。僕にも分かりませんけれども、そうですよね。なんていうのかな、こ やっぱり見てる人、彼らはもっとなんだろう、主体的に自分の面白いものっていうのを探してると思うので、これからなんかどんどんちょっと今までとは違うようなことになってくんじゃないかと思いますけども、でも僕もこれからどうなるか分かりません。その5年前と今違うし、もっとその5年はもっと違うんじゃないのかな。その時に僕らここでね話していること、今話していることは5年後にはもう古臭くなってるかもしれない。そのぐらい世の中は変わってるんじゃないですかね。
So I think over the past 5 years or so, the audience habits have changed so much when it comes to all the access that we now have thanks to streaming platforms. And I think the difference in audiences and how we've evolved, or I think those who have all this access now, who are seeking and have all of these options, are always looking for something new, or maybe something that they didn't think they were interested in, but now they have all these choices available to them, which they haven't had before. So I think it's really interesting to see this evolution, and I think in 5 years from now, it's going to evolve to something else. So just to see that habit and cultural phenomenon and how we have access to these films has been really interesting thing to observe.
I'm going to ask one or two more questions and then open it up to the audience. There is so much change going on in this industry, and navigating how to assess something like AI, how to assess viewing habits, how to assess all of the changes in business models. I'm curious, this is open to all the panelists, who do you turn to for direction? Many of the people in this audience, many of the people online, they're looking for thought leaders, they're looking for guidance. Who do you turn to for, guidance and direction and motivation for your own creative expression?
Can start. And then, for me, in this world led by AI, generated image, we are a lot since even 1 year. It's all surrounding and invaded by AI images. And for someone who make image, I think the key is the authenticity. I mean, I'm really looking for something that escape from that. Like we have too many computer-generated images, too many AIs, and so what here is important to see, actually. And my answer was, it's important to see a real thing. It's not a fake environment, but a real one, that we are in this civilized, in a big city. I come from Tokyo, so we are surrounded by all those fake, world, kind of, and more and more. So in this fake world, what is really important to us? And what is really important to us is not watching a very smooth and clean images, but something that changed, that is a bit dirty, a bit different color than just pink and yellow and blue, but something more nuances, that we shouldn't lose that. And so this is the point, that's why on my film, it's so important. I was struggling because the producer said, why don't you make in 3D? And it's like, no, I don't want making, I want the real thing. I want the real behavior of real plants, but because it's beyond our imagination. Just stop putting everything control. We shouldn't control everything. That is the first thing. And maybe the second thing is the point of the story. There we can share this. What is important today to tell a story? What is the view? You talk about the guidance. What guides us? Where should we go with all those crazy people around us, right? I don't want to nominate people, but say okay, you know, this is crazy. And what is like in Elio, for instance, that also link with my film is I don't want to spoil, but the end. What is important? It's not important to go somewhere else and throw away the earth and say, okay, the earth is garbage, we use everything, and now let's go to live in Mars. This kind of crazy ideas. Go and die there. But what is important, it's here. It's here. It's what is underneath our feet in the soil. Not so far, but here. And so in our garden, you know, in our home place. And so I think this is like a crucial point that we have to focus on, not throwing away what is used, but pay attention and have empathy of what we are living here. So that's why I really, you know, at the end I was like, yes, of course, you know. So yeah, I think this crucial, the both. What are we showing to you and to your new generation, because we're doing animation, so it's kids watching that. Kids is our future. What we give them, what we are going to feed them, you know, and we have to feed with authenticity, a real thing, and not the fake, you know, capitalist point of view, something authentic. So yeah, I think this is important.
Yes.
Yes, very well said. Oh, ditto. I totally. I'm done. Yeah, man. Who do I turn to? I think, like you said, I think we can all we can do is turn to each other, and I think. I mean, I truly believe that human stories can only be told by humans. And the most meaningful stories that I've ever, you know, that I love touch me in a very emotional way, and I have yet to see AI touch me in an emotional way. I think it's an amazing tool that can generate incredible visuals, but it's never like moved me. It's never like grabbed my heart and squeezed it. And I think that requires a human hand to be able to reach into your chest and squeeze your heart. And I think it'll always require that. Like we say at the end of our movie in Elio, it really is about human connection. And I think like even though technology is advancing, there is this overwhelming sense of loneliness in our world right now that I think only art and film and animation can fill and can like help us kind of come together in a really beautiful way, whether it's like coming together in like in a dark room and experiencing something at the same time together, or a graphic novel that you kind of pass around, like you like finish reading and then you want to share it with someone else. I think, I think like connect with your fellow human, and that will like just focus on that. Like try to focus your work and your storytelling on just trying to make connections with other people, and just try to ignore all the crazy noise that is happening in our world today. It's all about just trying to make a connection. Yeah.
Do you want to add, or should we go ahead?
I mean, everything you guys said.
I think we will throw it to the audience now to ask some questions. They're going to turn the lights on, I think. There are no microphones in the audience, so if you could speak clearly, and then I'll try my best to repeat it. There's this person in the front. So if I could summarize the question, what Domee mentioned about the need for human connection resonated with this audience member. They also would like to make money. So they want to get Domee's insights on how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, yes, we all need to make money. That's just the way the world works. I mean, I think it's really important to be aware of the changing viewing patterns in audience members, especially if you're making stories that you want to resonate with young people, and you know, like, you know, it's just the reality of our world that like younger people are just they're just watching and absorbing stories on their phones, on their computers in different ways. So I think like there needs to be an openness to kind of like meeting your audience kind of where they are in terms of how they are consuming your media. Like I feel in some way like when Turning Red came out, it was released directly to Disney Plus, and I remember getting a lot of questions about like, oh, how did you feel about that? And you know, at the end of the day, I'm just like, as long as, you know, like people are watching and connecting with my work in the best possible way, I'm happy with that. And I think Turning Red was able to connect with so many people because we were towards the end of the pandemic, you know, and people were still not 100% returning to theaters. So like having that as a way for people to access your stories was crucial. So I think like thinking about that, but also just like like I think the internet is a glorious and scary place, and I think like if you focus on telling a great story and it connects with people, like the internet will like help evangelize your story and spread it. So again, like it's just all about trying to connect with audiences, and I think the rest will hopefully follow. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. So the question for the panelists is how in 2025 is the best way for voice talent to get exposure and access to the filmmakers?
Yeah, and how they look for other talent, the directors, the producers, who's seeking and finding talent. Sometimes on the social media, they'll say Nickelodeon, they're casting this animation. So it's you know, how much of that is real, or how are they finding their talent too?
How do you find your talent for your voiceover or for your sound? So, you know, Kid Koala mentioned he texts them. Waits for the dots to turn into a yes.
My film doesn't have any dialogue, so I don't know if I'm the one to answer
Yeah.
this question.
For the voice actors, but
Yeah, I
how
mean,
about for something like a big studio?
Yeah, for bigger studios, we work with casting directors. Their job is to kind of like do like open casting auditions, and they kind of sort through auditions, and they curate and give us directors kind of a short list of talent that they think might fit the role. We give them like parameters, like we're looking for a teenager. For Turning Red, it was like, yeah, like it'd be great if they came from like an Asian immigrant background, because that felt very specific to the character. Sometimes it can be super broad. Yeah, so we usually just work with our very talented casting directors, and they give us a list of people to consider. And sometimes we audition them, or sometimes we just offer it to them. Like Sandra Oh, we kind of were just like, please, please, ma'am, please come be on our movie.
Please. I'm so sorry. I've been told that we need to end this panel so that the next panel could start. But before we do, I would make sure that you check out the next screening. So Scarlet is playing, the next screening is Wednesday, September 10th. Dandelion Odyssey, Momoko's stunning film, is September 10th. Space Cadet, North American premiere on Thursday. And Elio, Disney Plus, soon, late September. Please join me in thanking our 4 filmmakers for spending time with us today.